Hi, this is Shauna, the CEO and founder of Fuel Talent. One of the things I have loved most in my 25-year recruiting career has always been the stories that people tell. Stories of leadership, career choices, company ideas, and team building. My inspiration for starting the What Fuels You podcast came from being curious about people's lives and wanting to help share their stories. What path brought them to this place? What decisions did they make that led to failures and successes? Who influenced those decisions, and what lessons were learned along the way? I hope you enjoy the What Fuels You podcast. Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is Rebekah Bastian. Rebekah is a writer, artist, tech executive, mentor, wife, mother, and aerial acrobat. Love that. She has held leadership roles including Vice President of Product and Vice President of Community and Culture at Zillow and CEO and co-founder of OwnTrail. Rebekah is the author of Blaze Your Own Trail. She's a contributor to Forbes.com and is a frequent speaker on social impact, career navigation, and corporate diversity. Welcome, Rebekah.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so psyched. As you know, we always start with rapid fire, so I'm going to give it to you. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Since you were going to be an inventor, what is the best invention of all time? It's a tough one, right? You're like, really?
Well, I think we're going all time.
All time.
I'm going to go with electricity.
Yeah, that's a good one. All time. What about today's current
Internet?
invention? Internet, yeah.
Are those too predictable?
No. I mean,
Okay.
What else are you going to say that's better than that?
They're pretty good.
Is there an app that you can't live without?
I'm pretty hooked on Slack right now for communications with a lot of different groups of people in my life right now. So
Even for personal?
no, that one's more kind of projects and business focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to get into Slack. We use it, but I'm like the worst. What is your favorite movie?
Dirty Dancing.
Oh, Shauna. Don't put baby in the corner.
Exactly.
What is a habit that you are currently trying to break? I was going to make it all positive and be like, a habit you're trying to create.
Yeah, right.
But I'm going to get real. What's a habit you're trying to break?
I'm looking at my phone too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. As a mom, my kids, they physically move it out of my hand.
I know.
Oh, this is
and then
bad.
when they call you on it, stop
I
looking
know.
at your phone. You're like, oh, I'm a terrible
I
mother.
know. What is your favorite type of cuisine?
I think go sushi.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love.
Yep.
We have to go for sushi.
Let's do it.
Name one word that your friends would use to describe you.
Excited.
I like that. You're the fun friend?
I'm always excited about something.
I've never seen you not happy, too. You're definitely not moody. Or unless we're just not close enough that I don't see
I'm
you.
pretty, I think I definitely fill my life with things that excite me. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a bit of a cycle in that sense. But
That's really good. Have you always been like that?
Well, I guess I was definitely an angsty teenager. So, but teenage years don't count in terms of your personality, right?
I don't think so. I try to tell my kids to use that as happy fuel, that most successful people have some sort of, angst that if you can put that in the right direction,
Right.
it can be helpful. You don't meet that many successful people that don't have a little bit of that.
Yeah, no,
Right?
you got to have a little fire in you.
I think the opposite of that is complacency.
Right. Yeah.
I that's what I tend to tell myself. So I have met you as boss lady executive at Zillow, but tell me about you as a child, as a little girl. You're from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Yep, I grew up there since I was 5. I was actually born in Copenhagen, Denmark.
Oh,
Lived there till I was
whoa.
5, but grew up in Santa Fe,
Where are your parents from?
Boston, and New York.
And so what were they doing in Copenhagen?
My dad's an astrophysicist, so he had he was working out there. And,
Oh, just an astrophysicist?
and my mom is an artist, so I definitely have a little bit of the engineering and art combo in me, I think.
Yes. If I didn't know you and I was just meeting you out, I would say creative, just the way you carry yourself and your style.
Ooh, I like that. Thank you.
And you come off to me like an extroverted person.
I am an extrovert.
Yeah.
Textbook. If I have a really long, exhausting day, the way I want to unwind is go hang out with some friends and talk about it.
Yeah, me too. Oh my God, high five. We're like high five sisters. No, that's exactly right. I'm the same way. And so what's your family like? Do you have siblings?
Yep. I have a little sister. She's 6 years younger than me. My parents are still together and very cute. So yeah, nothing too unordinary there. I think as a kid, I was pretty chill. I up until about age 13, I was always very inventive. You know, kind of.
I read you wanted to be like an inventor or a ballerina.
Yes.
Those are a little extreme.
Well, that's the engineer and artist in me, I guess. But and could keep myself kind of focused and busy for a long time with different projects.
Yeah.
Then I hit teenage years, it all went to shit, and then I pulled it back together again.
Did you rebel?
Yeah, or something. Yeah, just self-destructive, bad decision-making kind of teenager.
Yeah, I mean, if there are teenagers listening, I always love to be like, how did we course correct?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. Well, I will say this, just like in the name of full transparency, I think one of the things that really course corrected me the most, and I will give credit to my parents for like probably planting some good seeds early on, but when I was 19 and I'd actually just failed out of my first attempt at college, I started having some really bad anxiety attacks. And through that, I stopped any kind of substances I was using, any kind of self-destructive behavior, just trying to get my brain back to normal. And I think that actually really saved me. And, I think a lot of people go through that at different points in their life. I think the timing on that one kind of scared me back into...
Did you do that on your own?
Yeah, and the help of like my parents and some different medical professionals and stuff.
Yeah. And so what are your parents like? Because you're... the Rebekah spelling is a little bit unique. I'm sure you have to correct people all the time.
Yeah.
And then what kind of last name is Bastian?
Well, Bastian's my husband's name.
Oh, that's your husband's name.
Yes, which actually, like, we always joke about how when I saw his name on the caller ID for the first time, I said yes to a first date because I'm like, yep, that one will do. Because I had a hyphenated last name growing up, Yozel Epstein.
I don't know why I totally thought that was your maiden name. I don't know why. I just assumed it.
Yeah. Well, I really embody it now. I feel like a Rebekah Bastian.
Yeah. And so what's your maiden name?
Yozel Epstein.
Literally.
So, yeah, because my mom kept her last name. So it's a combination of both of them. My mom is Yozel. My dad is Epstein.
Okay.
And I hated being hyphenated. So I was so ready to lose that.
Yeah, I can see that. So Jewish.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Both of them. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I don't think that we've put that together, obviously, like as another Jewish woman, which we could have a whole podcast on that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Dissect religion.
Dissect religion, dissect what's happening in the world right now. Yes. Dissect, is there a Jewish community in Santa Fe, New Mexico?
There actually is a pretty good thriving one there. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My mom's the president of the temple there.
Oh,
yeah.
Go mom.
Yeah.
Love it. And so how did you end up getting into mechanical engineering? Like, did your dad, the kind of more engineering side, expose you in some way? And
definitely not directly. You never know what you're picking up on. But I actually, after I moved to Seattle and I started taking some classes at Seattle Central Community College, it started with I took a astronomy class that seemed really cool. And so then that led me to some physics classes, and then that led me into some math classes. Mm-hmm. And pretty soon I'm like, wow. And I never, and I think it's oftentimes, what you see with young girls that like you don't really see science and engineering right in front of you as much as options that you're excited about. And so like I had never gotten into any of that before, but I was really good at it and I found it fascinating. And so when I ended up transferring to University of Washington, I transferred into the mechanical engineering department there.
And was that part of the game plan? Because I know you mentioned at the beginning of our little chat that you said you like failed out of school. You were studying to be...
I went for music the first time.
And what kind of music?
I played the oboe.
You're ever fascinating. You're like an onion. Just peel back the layers. What else are we going to discover? An acrobat / oboe player. So the oboe, is that the big one? No,
that's the bassoon. Okay, oboe's like the size of a clarinet, but it has a double reed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were going to go to college and do what?
The one thing that you can deduce from every life story I have is that there's not that much of a long-term plan, which I actually think is a strength, not a weakness, because it's kept me really open to possibilities. But I don't know what I was planning to do after oboe college.
And you didn't have the parents that were like, Rebekah, oboe, what are you going to do with that?
No. They've always been the like, if you're happy, we're happy type of parents. So.
I love that.
I know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So you ended up transferring into UW, studying mechanical engineering, and then ultimately went back and got a master's at Cal. So you went hardcore.
Yeah, it was, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I said, well, I'll apply to grad school at UC Berkeley and Stanford, because those two I knew had really interesting kind of like, I wanted to be an inventor, and I knew they had programs that were, something in line with that.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, if I get into one of those, awesome. Otherwise, I'll figure something out. And then got rejected from Stanford. Didn't hear from Berkeley for way longer than it should have taken, but then finally did get in.
Yeah.
Ended up working for a really fantastic professor there, Alice Agagino, and had a great time with it. It was great. I very much could have become a mechanical engineer after that, but I didn't.
What does a mechanical engineer do for like, I keep thinking of my kids, like, okay, tell my kids.
Well, I mean, like old school traditionally, it's like HVAC or Boeing, but there's a lot now, especially there's so much interesting. I think the whole Internet of Things thing is really interesting because there's all the kind of mechanical side of it and software side of it. And if I did get into mechanical engineering, I think it might have been something in that space.
Yeah. And did you go right away to Microsoft after school?
I did. So what happened was I was dating my boyfriend at the time.
Not Shane.
It was Shane, so it worked out. He's my husband now.
Good job.
Yeah.
Go Shane.
We started dating before I went down to Berkeley and did long distance while I was down there and really fell in love during that time. So I was just eager to get back to him. Mm-hmm. And it was 2002, so it wasn't like great job market right then. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what to do. So anyway, Microsoft was interviewing on campus. And so I signed up for an interview and I thought I would go in and do a hardware interview, which would have been relevant. And the guy that was interviewing me said, oh, I don't know how to give a hardware interview. Here, I'll give you a program manager interview, which I'd never heard of a program manager before. Yeah. But got the job somehow.
And that's what you ended up doing.
That's what I ended up doing. I was a program manager on Microsoft Outlook.
And what does that job entail? What does that person do?
So a program manager, which is also sometimes called a product manager, that's what we call it now, is really like taking products from ideation to execution. So really figuring out the requirements of what we're trying to solve, what requirements would solve that, working with designers to kind of figure out what that would look like, working with developers to figure out like how that might be built or making trade-offs, really defining all the functionality, some project management of kind of coordinating people and resources and stuff, and then getting it out there in the world and iterating.
And what did you think of Microsoft? I've had so many guests on the podcast, some old school Microsoft employees, that were there 20 years ago.
Yeah.
What was the culture like for you?
It was, so I met some really great people there.
I'm like, I can tell not so great. You're like, it was, how do I say this?
When I was there, I was kind of like, this is okay. I mean, I guess this is what it's like to have a real job,
Yeah, because you're young and you're thinking, I'm a big girl.
It was my first real job, yeah. And I'm like, it's not, it's not that invigorating, but I guess that's what working's like. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd always bartended and stuff before then, so this was my first office job. Now, in hindsight, once I went over to Zillow, I was like, oh, that was really, Outlook is a very legacy product. Office is a very legacy organization. I was very junior and working on small incremental things. So then going over to like a brand new pre-launch startup and building everything from scratch was like, oh my God, I'm changing the world now.
Oh, I'm sure. Wait, I need to know everything about Zillow as far as how that came to be. How did they even know who you were? How'd you find them?
So I believe I was the first employee ever hired off of Craigslist. Everyone that was there before me, I think, kind of knew each other from past jobs and stuff.
What employee number were you?
I think it was in the 20s.
That is so early.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we were, when they offered me the job and like through the interview process, they wouldn't actually tell me exactly what they were working on. Mm-hmm. Like it was so stealth.
What was the ad? What was the ad?
It was, Zillow is a real estate company and it's founded by Rich and Lloyd, who were, they're the guys that founded Expedia. So they have a good track record. And so I knew it was in the real estate space, but like they wouldn't really give me details until I'd signed the offer letter.
And did you interview with them?
I interviewed with Lloyd. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I walked out thinking I did not have the job.
Because he's not so emotive, right? He's not showing you on his face. Like
I think his exact words with one. He was looking at my resume and he was like, "Well, why did you work on that?" And I'm like, because I was an intern and they told me to.
Yeah. So, you're supposed to have these like crazy.
Which, by the way,
ideas.
I have come to completely adore Lloyd. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And so they just kind of said, it's this real estate company, and what were they hiring for?
It was a program manager. So, same level, same title. I mean, really for me, the thing that had me looking, it wasn't even that I realized that it could be better out there, but the commute was killing me.
Mm.
I live in Ballard, Microsoft's in
Oh, yeah.
Redmond. It was awful. So that's what really had me like going and looking at something in Seattle.
Opportunities, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so day one, you get there, and were you drinking from the fire hose, just the whole startup versus Microsoft?
Yes, I was drinking Kool-Aid from a fire hose.
I think everyone still drinks Kool-Aid over there. It's got good vibes.
That's the thing about working on something that's really crucial to people's lives in a place that has a really strong culture. It's very Kool-Aid-y, which is in a good way.
Yeah. And, well, we're going to get to this, the different roles that you've had along the way. You've had several, but your ultimate role, community and culture and all that stuff, that makes a huge difference too when you feel like you can 100% be yourself at work, and you have to have like work Shauna versus home Shauna.
Yeah, that has been my focus and my team's focus.
That creates a lot of Kool-Aid too, especially as the company has gotten so big.
Yep.
How many employees are at Zillow now?
I think it's about 5,500.
5,500. You're employee number 20.
Yeah, it's been a good ride.
It has to have been a good ride. And so aren't we calling it Zillow Group now?
Yes.
Like officially, isn't that what I'm supposed to be calling it? I always get confused. I'm like Zillow.
Yeah. We've done several acquisitions and kind of moved into Zillow Group.
Zillow Group is the big one.
Yeah.
And so, what's been the most exciting day that you've had at Zillow?
Well, I will say that I missed IPO because I was on maternity leave. It was vicariously exciting. But I would say one project that that was really dear to my heart that I worked on the side for about a year was our first iPhone app. And it was a side project. The iPhone had just come out. A few developers and I were working on it, and it took a really long time.
I have it on my phone.
Yes, it's even improved now.
Yeah, it's super cool.
But we'd worked on it for a long time. We finally launched it. It got I got to fly down to Apple with Rich and Lloyd to go present it to the leadership team there at Apple.
That's amazing.
Steve Jobs presented it on stage during his upcoming keynote, and just the exhilaration of like having started something as a side project and then having it be that well received, and that it was just like, oh my gosh, of course real estate is mobile, like this makes sense. And then we created a whole mobile team, and it grew, and it's become a huge part of our business. But kind of it's that almost kind of the entrepreneurship thing where you kind of you feel such ownership over something, like it's your baby, like you've created it from scratch, and then it becomes like a real big thing. And that was really exciting. It's
huge. And so how would you currently describe Zillow? If you met somebody, if you're traveling in Europe and they're like, where do you work? Mm-hmm. How would you describe the company now because of so many different acquisitions?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's a real estate platform that has actually in the past year or two pivoted from being a real estate marketplace where people would just kind of connect over real estate to we've moved into being part of the transaction now, where people with a single click can sell their home to us or buy their home from us. And we're actually part of that process, which then means that we can deliver extremely helpful content and services through the entire process of home buying and selling and renting and getting mortgages and all of those different areas of real estate.
That's incredible.
It's grown to be something pretty magnificent. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so some of the ideas, is it the kind of culture where you feel like any ideas that you have, you can run with them or pitch them to the founders or to the leadership team and that it's like, hey, go for it?
Definitely, ideas come from everywhere. We're pretty data-driven in our decision-making. And, I would answer that yes. I'm also one of our first employees and am an executive there. So I also want to kind of recognize my privilege with that. I think that for any employee, yes, that is possible. But a lot of people come from a lot of different companies and have different kind of associations with how corporations work. So I wouldn't say that every employee feels like they can do that. And part of my team's job is to kind of help people realize that everyone's voice really matters and is valued. But people bring baggage with them into the workplace.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh God, yes. Well, and then also at that size, you almost have to systematize it and make it kind of formal versus it's not like they're just going to walk in and be like, hey, Rebekah, I got this idea.
Yeah.
They have to really think through it and make sure that they're efficient with their time and your time and everything like that. And so it's not an accident that you're an executive there and that you've been there, 15 years?
Yeah,
is that right?
14 and a half.
14 and a half. You've crushed it. And yes, you've been given the opportunity, yes, timing and all these other things, but what part of you or your DNA do you think has led to your success, especially as a woman?
Well, I think a lot of my success at Zillow is because of the culture that Zillow has, which is, I have lots of big, crazy ideas, and some of them are fantastic and some of them are terrible. But I'm the kind of person that, like, even if I wasn't supposed to be just trying things and doing big things and sharing big ideas, I don't think I'd be able to suppress that. So, it's great that I've ended up at a company where that's valued and where that's actually led to my success as opposed to holding me back, because it really, so much of that depends on the company.
Yeah.
And, as a woman, like, yes, engineering's male dominated. Our numbers are certainly getting better. But it's like, especially like when I was in mechanical engineering school, it was like 10% of the class was women or something, So I'm used to that. That hasn't bugged me. I will say that one thing that's been really amazing, and probably one of the several reasons that I have been at Zillow so long, is that there was, I guess, the opposite of the motherhood penalty for me, where I got promoted into people management when I was about 8 months pregnant with my first kid. And I got promoted to VP of product shortly after my second maternity leave. And so not only did becoming a mother not hold me back, but I actually, I think I and many women I talked to had this idea that I need to get wherever I need to get in my career before I have kids, because then I'm going to stagnate. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. And I think that, being at a company that has really allowed me to keep growing and thriving through motherhood has been huge for me.
Mm-hmm. And I also know that you pride yourself, and I love this, that you drop the kids off, you pick them up. And is that something that's kind of part of the culture, or is that like, hey, you've earned it because you've been there a long time?
No, I think, we're not, well, some are hourly roles that do clock in and out. But, for, if you're not in an hourly role, it's not that there is flexibility. I certainly, I'm sure you can relate to this as a mother. Like, I am super productive because of,
you need to be.
It's important to me that I'm there with my kids in the evenings and I drop them off and stuff. And so, like, I really get shit done during the day.
Yeah.
And sometimes after they're in bed and stuff, So I think, like, no, it wouldn't be okay for me to just be dropping the ball on things for that. But if I'm able to be really productive and to get it all done and be there for my family, that's definitely encouraged.
Yeah. What advice do you give to people who are considering startup life?
I think it's great to have startup experience at some point in your life if you're up for it. Yes, like there's kind of two sides of the same coin. Like, yes, it can be really long hours. Sometimes it can be really intense. Riskier than going to an established company. But at the same time, like, you get to wear lots of hats. You're needed, sure. like any time ever in the early days when I would say, "Oh, can I help out with that?" The answer is yes.
Yeah, of course. They're like, really?
And so I got to learn so much so fast just by taking on all these different projects and skills, and it was a blast. Yes, there were weeks where I'd kind of be living in the office, and that worked for where I was in my life right then. So it was okay. But I think, to be fair, not every single startup is like around the clock. Every company has a different culture.
Yeah.
And,
well, I see Zillow as such a successful company, and certainly Rich and Lloyd as incredible. They've got this Midas touch that's crazy. Yeah. But people at Microsoft and people at Amazon talk about being Bill ready or being Jeff ready. Is there a way to be prepared to meet with Rich or Lloyd for people who aren't as in it as you are? Like, if you were giving advice, like, you better come ready with X.
I think come ready to speak up. They want to hear from people. Rich and Lloyd aren't that kind of like, I'm going to trick you into saying the wrong thing and then devour you for it kind of people.
They're not top down, it sounds like, either too much.
No. And in fact, Rich's style is really like wanting to empower his leaders and their leaders and on down to like really, be autonomous and make the right decisions. So, he doesn't want to be in the weeds on everything. And as such, he's not, I think that they ask great questions, like know your stuff and come ready to really speak up and know that you're in the room for a reason. And this is what I always tell people in any context, not just with your CEO, but there's a lot of different meetings and conversations that can feel intimidating that you'll find yourself in. And the reason you're in that conversation or in that conference room is because you have knowledge or skills that are needed there. And so even when it feels scary, push yourself, speak up and share your ideas, because that, even if they disagree with the ideas, that's still going to be more respected than just staying silent.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know that you or I could stay.
That's not my problem.
Okay, yeah. So since you've had so many awesome roles and such a variety of roles, from product to VP of community and culture at Zillow, where are we on the whole inequity thing? And what are you guys doing about it?
The whole inequity thing. Well, that is huge and societal, but also, once you get into the workplace, what we focus on at Zillow is what we call equity and belonging. So, a lot of companies talk about diversity and inclusion, and we really feel that, in addition to that being kind of glossed over just because it's become a little bit...
it's like want.
Yeah. But it really getting at the core of what's important for us to focus on. So equity really is looking at the fact that, even before anyone ended up at Zillow, everyone's had really different opportunities and different barriers in their lives. And some of that is kind of due to individual circumstance. Some of it's due to systems of oppression in the world. But not everyone has had the same opportunities to get to the same places. And what we want to do in people's careers is really recognize that everyone's starting from a different place and needs different things, and providing what everyone needs in order to really be successful, to grow and thrive in their careers.
Mm-hmm. And what's an example of that? Because I'm just thinking of, like, as you were talking, I thought you were going to say something around kind of like leveling the playing field.
I mean, that's what that is, right? Like when you provide everyone what they need, recognizing that what they need might be different, then that is essentially leveling the playing field in order to, there's people talk, and especially in tech, about meritocracy. The person who works the hardest is going to do the best. But when you're starting from a different place, that can't be true, right?
Yeah, the finish line's at a different spot.
Totally, yeah, or the starting line's at a different spot.
Yeah, the starting line, exactly.
So, equity is really about providing people what they need. So that might be things like, additional training or mentorship or opportunities, or, even thinking about something as simple as, I'm hiring for a new role, or I have an opportunity for someone that could really enhance their role. I'm going to look around and say, who's interested in this? And someone who feels really confident, who hasn't necessarily been beaten down by different systems in their life, might raise their hand and confidently say, me, I'm ready for that. And I'm like, okay, great, they're ready for that. But I wouldn't be looking then at who are the people who aren't raising their hand because they have, anything from imposter syndrome to not having had the same, education or skills that makes them think they're prepared. Or, there's so many things there that, how do we create opportunities equitably with really understanding, what people could do and how we can give them the resources they need to do that.
I love that. That's such a different way of thinking about it. I mean, it's an obvious thing once you're saying it, but I've never really heard it positioned like that.
Thank you.
And then what about once they're there and so how do you get them to kind of...
That's the belonging side of it,
That's
right?
the belonging side.
So belonging, when we talk about that, we're really thinking about how do we create a culture and create a space where everyone really feels safe bringing their best selves to work, right? So able to really be heard, be seen, be valued for who they are, and not feeling the need to fit in, but really feeling like they should be who they are there. And we do that in a lot of different ways too. Everything from centered spaces like our affinity networks to...
What does that mean?
Affinity networks are like the same as employee resource groups, ERGs.
Mm-hmm.
So about 40% of the company actually participates in them now. But those are spaces where, so like, the Women's Network or the Black African Ancestry Network or the Pride Network, or we have 9 of them.
Oh, that's amazing. How did you come up with them? Was the company come up with them, the people?
The employees. So there's launch leaders for each network. So those are employees that are stepping up to start the network, and they go through a lot of work to kind of get it going and create a charter. And then we have network elections each year to elect leadership, which is all employees, to run it. So my team, we have some people on my team that support the networks to help them achieve their goals, but they're really employee-led organizations.
I think this is incredible. I know a lot of bigger companies do this kind of thing, but I feel like Zillow's been so beyond thoughtful about it, really intentional. And so the employees are leading it. What do you do as company leaders to support them?
So each network has an executive sponsor or two that gives them a direct line into the executive team. Each network has an HR business partner liaison that they can go to for any HR issues. And then there are several people on my team that support the networks in terms of helping them with their budgets and their events and their, kind of the structure for how to kind of think about running the networks. And we support a certain amount of time each month for network leaders and network members to be engaging in that space. And so
that's incredible. I love it. And so I also know that you serve on a lot of boards. Like, I don't know how you're having time for all this. And we're going to get to the fact that you, by the way, read a book and are launching a company. So how do you have time for all of this? What boards are you on, and how do you decide which boards to join? Because I'm sure you're asked a lot.
Yeah, so right now I am on the board of Bellwether Housing. Homelessness and housing affordability has been an area that I've been really passionate about for years, especially, being at Zillow and working in the housing space and living in Seattle.
I was about to say, I'm living in Seattle.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm on the advisory board for the University of Washington Department of Mechanical Engineering, which, I felt is really important because of, I like to keep my foot in the mechanical engineering space a little bit where I can. I still love it. And I feel that really being able to apply kind of the equity lens that I've learned through my role to that space is really important as well. Mm-hmm. And then I'm an advisor for a startup called Leg Up that's here out of Seattle, which is a managed marketplace for childcare. That's really cool. My friend Jessica Eggert is, her, right?
Yeah.
She's the founder. So
that's really cool.
So those are the three that I am doing right now.
That's a lot.
But here's the thing about how do I make time for all of that is I'm really excited about all of the things that I do. And I find for me that when I'm doing a lot of things that are energizing and exciting, that gives me energy, it doesn't drain my energy, So
I'm so happy to hear you say this because I get, I don't know, it's a strong word to say criticized, but I get questioned a lot.
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing so much? You're doing another thing. Like, you need to start to set boundaries and say no. And sometimes I feel that way. And other times I'm like, it's in my DNA to be completely energized by these things. Like, I mean, unless it's not energizing, like an event that you go to that's like, ugh. But generally speaking, I leave charged and
totally.
Inspired. And so then, given that you're such an extrovert, how did you find the discipline and time to do such an introverted behavior, like write a book?
Well, I do love writing. I've been actually writing which is funny. I discovered that I like writing 5 or 6 years ago, which is kind of like...
When did you start writing for Forbes?
I started writing for Forbes a little over a year ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I was writing for Huffington Post before that and a little bit for Thrive Global. It was actually, someone just asked me to do a guest blog post once, I think 6 years ago for Seattle Geek Girl dinners. And I did. And then people really liked it. And so this is the kind of thing I do. I'm like, well, why not ask? So I sent an email unsolicited to Ariana Huffington and was like, oh, I just wrote this blog post. Are you interested in it? And she was like, I love it. Here's a byline. So then I'm like, oh, well, now I have this outlet. I'm going to start writing,
Yeah.
And so that's how I started with that. And I really enjoy writing. It's one of those things that, why did I not discover this earlier in life? But the idea for my book actually just came to me in the middle of the night. It was like this weird download from dreamland.
Yeah. So I love the name Blaze Your Own Trail.
Thank you.
Love it, love it, love it. How did you come up with it?
Well,
in the middle of the night.
Yeah. So the idea behind Blaze Your Own Trail is it's, I'm going to say this even though it's a choose your own adventure style book. Don't sue me. No, just kidding.
Choose your own adventure. So if you go down column A, it's...
Yeah. So you're basically reading it. At the end of each chapter, you make a decision, and that tells you what chapter to go to next. You remember that series?
That's so cool. Of course.
Yeah. So that's the premise, but it's exploring the different pathways and decisions that a woman takes through her personal and professional life.
Okay.
And so that choose your own adventure style really lends itself to the fact that there is no one right path. There's so many different ways you could go. And so there's 19 different endings, and each one is called Happily Ever After something, something. And it's really, none of them are fairy tale, but it's kind of the idea, kind of like cognitive behavioral therapy, where you think through what's the worst case scenario that could possibly happen and then figure out how you're still okay.
I
you know?
love it.
And so it's kind of doing that. And then also I weave a lot of data into it. And so, the format is really trying to embrace the idea that there's no one right path. But then the data is really trying to help understand that, as a woman, there's all these experiences that we have that feel really isolating, and we feel like we're the only ones going through them. And the reason for that isn't because we're the only ones going through them. It's because no one talks about it.
Right.
And so through the data, I'm really trying to shed light on the fact that these are actually really common experiences. And, we're so many of us are going through those together.
And where did you do the research? Where did you find all the data?
The internet, the best invention of the modern.
The World Wide Web.
Yes.
And so what does it mean to you? Because I know that you're described as a feminist. What does that word mean to you?
Well, I mean, feminist is just believing that women can and should be able to do and have everything that men can. It's just, it's really about equality.
Do you think that there's backlash to that, like in the last 4 or 5 years?
Yes, but they're wrong. Some people have a negative connotation of like angry feminists, which even that is okay. I mean, sometimes there's a really good reason to be angry too,
It's a complicated subject. I've had lots of women on the podcast, and if I said something, I'm saying mother and wife, and that is a part of who you are. Mm-hmm. And sometimes women are like, well, that's not relevant. And I'm like, no, it's 100% relevant. All of you is relevant.
Yeah. Well, and, interestingly, I might argue there's a lot of there is definitely still very much a patriarchy, and there's a lot of problems that stem from that. But also, I think women's personal and professional lives tend to be more intertwined than men's oftentimes, for whatever reason. And maybe that's societal, or maybe that's whatever it is. But I think it tends to be the case, And so, like, I am a mother and a wife and an executive and all those things. And, like, I feel like it would actually be selling my experience short to try to compartmentalize that into just, certain pieces of it.
Yeah, completely. And so you surround yourself, I know, with a lot of strong women, probably working women, stay-at-home moms, all different types of women. Yep. Do you have any part in the book about how women can support each other?
Yeah, I definitely lean on the solidarity piece around the relationships in the book. And I think probably all of the female friendships in the book are pretty strong and positive ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As they should be.
Yes.
Like, I think that as you get older, you do realize the girlfriend thing is so powerful. And especially when it's the ride or die type of friendship that's like, hey, I've got you. Yeah. 100%. But I think that women are raised to kind of compete. And that part, I think, is just interesting.
I do think that there's, especially when women aren't being treated equitably, then there's kind of the scarcity mindset, right? Like, women are 50% of the population. So if everything was totally equal, then, there'd be kind of half of every opportunity or everything to go around. Mm-hmm. And when it's not that, then people start to feel that scarcity. And I think that can breed competition or
I think it's more that. I think it's super complex. And so tell me about the book exactly. Like, how long did it take you to write? And what's the outcome that you're looking for from writing the book?
Yeah. So I wrote it pretty fast. My now 6-year-old, then 5-year-old, was going through a period of time where he wouldn't go to sleep unless I was sitting in the chair in the corner of his room. And so I would just sit there every night writing some of the book on my phone.
Your phone?
Yeah, I found this app that would sync with, between my phone and my laptop. And I would just sit there and write. And I kind of, the app also let you set goals for yourself. So I'd be like, I'm just going to write.
What's the app called?
Ulysses.
Oh, that's great.
There's a bunch of apps on it. Yeah. I don't know. I picked this one. It works pretty well. It lets you like reorganize chapters and stuff. But I'd set like pretty small goals for myself to write every day. And some days I wouldn't be feeling it and I would just get to the like 300 words or whatever, which is not very much, and stop. And some days I'd be really inspired and write, 2,000 words or 3,000 words, And so I just kept doing that. And I just had a feeling, I'm like, this is in me and I want to get it out. And the best way to get out is just going to be to like make myself write it every day. And so I did. And it was really fun to write.
And I'm so excited to read it. What does it look like?
Oh my gosh.
I can't wait to see it.
I'll show you a picture. Yeah, I should have actually brought you. I have galley copies. I should have brought you next time I see you.
And so is this leading to some sort of business change? I mean, what are you going to do with the book?
Funny you should ask, Shauna. Thank you. So yeah, what happened was as I'm thinking about kind of a launch platform for the book, which, kind of the traditional one is you create a website about yourself, and this is the book I wrote. And I kind of was feeling like this could be much bigger than like anyone who's interested in, about me. And really like the platform or the messaging behind Blaze Your Own Trail could be something that really appeals to a wider audience. So I started playing around with like, I'm a tech and product person. I'm like, what would a website look like that was really cool? And maybe there's some viral thing that lets women share their trails and stuff. And as I started digging in and thinking about it and having conversations, I started to really kind of coalesce on some truths that there are some really interesting problems that need solving. And I was starting to visualize like what those solutions could look like.
Mm-hmm.
So namely, the fact that women, and I know this from, I have coffee with young women all the time and older women. And there's this kind of need to figure out what their path is, like where they're supposed to be going, how they're supposed to get there, have it figured out. And people worry about that, And then when you look around at kind of, well, what are the solutions that are out there? Everything's really focused on the end state and not the pathing to get there. And it's this like fairly picture perfect end state at that, right? It's the kind of social media facade that we all hate.
Right.
And then, like I mentioned, women's personal and professional lives are completely intertwined. But when you look at kind of what's been built for us, it's personals here, professionals there. They're not really interconnected. And this is something that, I've seen and really gotten to understand a lot more in the role that I've been in recently is people really need to see someone who looks like them in order to really aspire to great things. And it's not just having the confidence to go after something. It is that. But it's even more importantly, like even having an idea that that something might exist, right? So if I don't see people who look like me in spaces that I might aspire to, it's really hard for me to push myself there. Mm-hmm. And when we look at kind of the purview in front of us, it's limited, especially for the more underrepresented identities you hold, the more limited your purview is for seeing people that look like you in corporate America or just, around us. So that is this problem set. And then on the other side of the coin is really, once we get to a certain place in life or get past a certain obstacle, we want to be able to give back to people who are coming up behind us. And traditionally, that's been mentorship. And mentorship as we know it is super time consuming and not at all scalable. I can spend a lot of time talking with one person or maybe a few people. And at the end of the day, they're still going to need more information and guidance than I've been able to give them. And I'm going to be starting all over with someone else, know? And so what I came to realize is that like there's these problems. And when we've always said like, oh, I need a mentor or I want to be a mentor, what we're really saying is like, I want to be solving these problems. And mentorship is kind of the construct that we've used to identify so far with that. And so I've started working on this website, which has gone way beyond what I was doing with the book, OwnTrail.com.
OwnTrail. Okay.
Yeah.
Got
it. Like blaze your own trail.
Got it.
Or own your trail.
Okay.
And it's basically the idea is that women can do these micro acts of mentorship, which is sharing their life paths, right? And the life path is going to be a series of milestones that are interconnected, and each milestone is normalized by a category. And when we put those all together, it can be this really rich, vibrant tool for women to kind of create this self-guided mentorship that they're looking for by navigating this really rich data set. So you can almost picture this like neural network of life paths, right?
And so can they ask questions within the network?
Yeah. So the what we're launching on February 11th is the V1, where we'll have the ability to create trails and browse through trails individually. Mm-hmm. But then we have this vision for really creating this really vibrant interaction on the different milestones, finding ways to kind of overlay the trails to really answer interesting questions around like, what are all the ways that women have gotten to a certain point in their lives or from a certain point? Or, how did somebody who shares my same identities make it to this place in their life, and really being able to navigate it in a way that answers the questions and provides the inspiration that women need. And we really believe that when someone says, I need a mentor, this can be what they're asking for there.
That's amazing. And so if I was to go on right now and be part of the beta test, would I be filling it out open text, or is it a pull down like your book? Like now this, go to the right, go to the left.
We have a really fun interface. Actually, we just launched the beta so that we're going to have a lot of trails on the site when we launch.
Yeah, so that you can see some
data.
data.
Yeah, exactly. So I will send it to you right after this. I would love for you to try it. But it's a really fun interface where you can add different milestones. You choose what category it is. You add some information about it, some text, and some other attributes.
What are some examples of milestones? Because you said personal and professional. They're milestones like getting married and having kids.
Getting married and having kids. Switching jobs or getting a promotion. There's, all of the different bumps in our roads. We really want to embrace like the real story. There's, there's death and illness, and there's mistreatment, and but then there's all the positives around, moving and new beginnings, and it's everything that can happen in your work and personal life.
That sounds exciting. And so obviously, given from where I sit as a recruiter, I'm constantly meeting with people who are in career transition or confusion or something. And oftentimes, if it's a return to the workforce mom, those candidates can get a little bit need the most as far as like mentorship or getting their confidence back. I think this platform would be amazing for them to say, hey, here's all these other women who also took a break.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Who else, has, took this much time off work and maybe even did this similar job before, and who, and they also are dealing with aging parents, or they're also, single parents, or they're also...
it's going to be really, I can't wait to see it. And so what's the business model? How are you going to make money?
Well, we're really focusing the first, probably 18 months or so on really building up the platform to be super engaging, super useful, build up a user base, and have some incredible data and interactions on there. We're going to do some partnership models to work with different organizations that are supporting women to really kind of support them in sharing the stories and experiences of their members and build it up that way. And once we get to kind of a critical mass of users, then there's some really interesting stuff we can do, both, around predictive analytics, really understanding where people are going in their lives, what they might do next, what they need to be seeing to help them through this next phase. And, at that point, you can monetize in a few different ways. There's one thing that we're holding very near and dear to us that's part of our core values is complete safety and privacy. So what I can say is that we will never be giving users data away. I think that we've reached kind of a low in the internet age in terms of data privacy and how data is being used. But you can really uphold privacy and create a really safe environment and provide people with the products or services that they need for the different areas that they're navigating in their life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What do you anticipate will be the biggest challenge?
Well, everyone keeps telling me that fundraising is the biggest challenge at first, right? So, you hear a lot of horror stories about that. I will admit that I've been talking to a lot of investors, and it's been fantastic conversations. So hopefully that's not the biggest challenge, right? Yeah. Getting the flywheels going of repeat usage and getting people to really,
onto the platform.
Yeah, onto the platform and coming back to the platform and engaging. I have a lot of ideas around that, but we also really want to listen to our users. We want this to be, I really love the idea of this new internet age that is consumer driven, right? So it's not the company coming in saying
this is
what you need. This is how it works. Here's what you're going to do. But it's really listening to the users and saying what do you need? How do you want to use this? How is this best going to serve you? And we're really planning to build it in a way where we're getting that feedback and building based on that. So,
well, given that your background, you really are like the ultimate Swiss Army knife as far as being able to be all things. Do you have team members? Are you going to hire people?
Yes, we have a great team. So I guess, first of all, if it's not abundantly clear through this conversation, I have announced that I'm going to be leaving Zillow to run this. So that is really exciting.
This is beyond exciting. And thank you for giving the What Fuels You podcast the opportunity to share your story. This is super cool. So
this is the perfect venue for sharing it. Yeah.
Okay, so you've got a little team.
Yeah, so I will be CEO of OwnTrail. I have a co-founder who is fantastic. Her name is Katie McBratney. She's been CMO at a company called Seed and Spark, which is this really cool crowdsourcing independent video platform. And so she's going to be leaving there as well to co-found this with me. So our roles are really, I'm about really building the thing, and she's about getting people to use the thing. So she has a really interesting and cool branding and marketing kind of background. we have two phenomenal developers, Carolyn Dunn and Lyle Hazel, who are also going to be joining us to do this.
Is
and
Carolyn
have been working on
and
it.
Lyle females?
Carolyn is a female, Lyle is male.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, look at you, 3 out of 4 females. Good for you.
Yeah, well, we have a woman designer and 2 women advisors too. So,
So you've got, this is like a full thing. And are you finding yourself beyond energized by it? You know, just like I remember those early days of starting Fuel is like just, you know, you can't sleep. You're so excited.
I'm so excited. And I'm feeling every emotion possible just because, you know, Zillow has been my baby and I love it.
And your family.
And stepping away. My family, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're super supportive and wonderful. My family.
No, not your family. I mean, your Zillow family. I mean, because Zillow has been your baby, but also those people are your peeps.
Yes. Like some of my best lifelong friends
I know.
are at Zillow. Yeah. So that it's so bittersweet and I'm feeling so many feelings about it. But the one feeling I haven't had really is doubt. Like I kind of feel like every experience I've ever had, everything I've ever learned and done has all led to this moment. And this is what I have to be doing right now. And that's the most exciting feeling.
Oh, it's incredible. You're going to crush it. So the kind of people that should be coming to the website would be all women who are wanting to either share their story or read about other people's stories.
Yeah. And I would argue that they should probably be one and the same. Over time, I think we're going to find that, right? Because everyone has a story to share.
I love it. Well, that's why I got the podcast going. Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite part is learning about people's stories. And it's never just kind of a straight line.
No, everyone has something to share and everyone has something to learn. So anyone who thinks they don't have a story to share or thinks that they have it all figured out and don't need any more inspiration or guidance,
they're dead.
Is not really correct.
Yeah.
So hopefully, you know, the women that come to the site really want to be both. I mean, you can definitely start in one role or the other, but yeah, I mean, it's for all women. And we're focusing, one of our advisors, Sage Camno is, do you know her from Future? She's one of the founders of Future for Us, which is a fantastic organization. But we have her advising really on partnerships and on intersectionality. So we really want to be intentional from the beginning. You know, I think a lot of women's spaces tend to be spaces for white women because they're not intentional about being intersectional of the different identities that women hold. And so we're really trying to address that from the beginning. So that's all to say that I really hope that an extremely diverse array of women will be coming to OwnTrail, sharing their experiences, learning from each other. The power is really going to be in getting enough stories that someone can filter down to really specific identities and experiences and still see a lot of people that can inspire them and that they can share their experiences with.
Mm-hmm. And well, given, you know, that a lot of people, especially this time of year, because we're in January now, are doing kind of vision boards and goal setting. Are you doing all of that? It's 2020, so it's like this 10-year thing that I feel is bigger this year. Do you have a vision for what things will look like for you 10 years from now?
Ooh. My whole MO is visualization all the time. I'm always like, you know, I think that I've been pretty, not to sound too hippie about it, but I feel like I've been pretty good at manifesting things because I just visualize the results that I want all the time. But, and that being said, I also don't think too far out. So 10 years.
10 years is a long time.
No, but I can say what I hope for OwnTrail, really. And this could take 10 years. I don't know. Hopefully we'll get a big piece of it sooner. But I want this to really be the place where all women can come, all women and gender non-binary people can come and really find the inspiration and the stories and the guidance and everything that creates the confidence that they need to really, you know, essentially blaze their trail through life. The confidence and the solidarity and the compassion for other people's experiences. And everything that can lead to that will be found on OwnTrail, and it will be such a rich, interactive space. And it's not a social network. It's not connecting people to people, but it's really connecting experience to experience. And so there's not this kind of like winner-take-all model of building up social collateral or vying for attention, but it's really like, how can we share our experiences? Where are they interconnected? Where can they define each other's experiences and build that out to be so robust that it really starts to solve some of the big systemic issues that we see in the world that lead to lower confidence and lower connection amongst women.
I love this. I mean, I'm so excited. I'm like, when can we start? I'm really proud of you and just excited
Thank
because
you
I
so
think it
much.
takes a lot of courage, right? I mean, you're in such a great place in your career and in your life, and a lot of people just kind of phone it in. And you're like,
Yes.
nope, not me. I'm going for it.
I'm so excited. It's fantastic. And I think, the team that we have working on this, which will keep growing, but I didn't mention yet, but Rebekah Lovell's another one of our advisors. I think you know her, and
Yeah.
she's phenomenal. And we have our
Rebecca's on the podcast next week.
Yay,
Yeah.
good.
And I was on her podcast on Create 33.
Oh, perfect.
I know. And she was so good as a host. So now
Okay.
I'm like, crap.
She's fantastic.
I love Rebekah.
Yvonne Chen is this incredible designer who actually did my book cover, and she's been doing the designs for the website too. And she's just, keep an eye on that one because she's an up and coming. She's going to be designing a lot of incredible things in the future. So
I will definitely keep an eye on her.
The team overall is just so incredible, and so that gives me the confidence to really kind of run with them, and like we're all believing in this, and it's so exciting.
Well, as your friend, I can tell you I'm totally rooting for you, and I'm sure Shane and the boys are so proud. You're setting such a good example as a mom and as a woman.
I will say in testament to Zillow that I told my boys last night that, I just told my manager that I'm going to be leaving Zillow, and Arlo, my 6-year-old, starts bawling.
It's
and
like all he's ever known.
Well, once I got to the bottom of it, it's the candy wall and the foosball.
Oh, that's
he lost
hilarious.
it. Yeah.
You're like, we can still go by and visit.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to get a lot of candy in our new space to keep him happy. Yeah.
I'll come bring you some candy when you open the doors. I will come bring you candy for sure. It's super fun to get to chat with you and have some one-on-one time. I always ask at the very end the question, what fuels you? Since you listened, hopefully you.
Yeah. I mean, what fuels me is all the people and opportunities that I see around me in life. I think that there's so much more that connects us than divides us, even though, that doesn't always play out that way right now, but I think we can do something about that. And when we do connect, there's so much we can do, and combining our energy, it feels limitless to me. And that's really what fuels me.
I'm excited. Yay. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, and follow us on social media to keep up with the latest news and episodes. You can also contact us at podcast@fueltalent.com to provide feedback, ask questions, and share topics or guests you would like us to cover in the future. We hope you feel inspired by our guests and that we have helped fuel your day. Join us next time for another episode of What Fuels You.